saw, dude. Today we are taking a look at the MacBook Air 2020. This is the base model MacBook Air that I picked up with the student discount, and they didn't even verify it. So just a little tip for you guys out there. Try and purchase it through a student discount. They might not even ask for verification. They may just let you go through with the purchase. So I picked this up because I wanted a new MacBook. I was growing really tired of my older MacBook Pro that unfortunately had a horrible keyboard that had to be replaced. And it was just really unsatisfactory to type on. This one is much better, luckily, and we'll talk about that later in this video. But I just want to say that overall I'm very pleased with this laptop, and we're going to look at some of the reasons as to why that is in this video. So this isn't going to be a video where I go in depth with all the specs and run a bunch of benchmarks, because quite frankly I don't really care about those. In my experience, benchmarks typically mean nothing. It's more about daily use, what you can actually use the laptop for and what you can't. I also think that specs with Macs in particular just don't really matter a whole lot, since yeah, the specs are typically lower, but the optimization that Apple has with their hardware and software typically makes up for that. This isn't going to be one of those videos where, oh, we can see that I clocked it at 64 gigahertz. No one cares. It doesn't matter, so we're just going to skip past that. What I do want to spend some time on is just the design. Obviously, the design is amazing. It's super thin, super sleek. It's built really well. It just feels really premium and really sturdy. And obviously, that's sort of what you expect when you're paying a premium for a laptop by Apple, but they come through. This is an amazing laptop. All MacBook Airs, in terms of their design and their build quality, and MacBooks in general, just feel really premium, really solid. And I think that's a big thing as to why people are willing to spend such an exorbitant amount of money on them. Now this is the base model, as I may or may not have mentioned before, I can't remember, but this is the base model, which means that it's the cheapest one you can buy. And honestly, words can't describe to you just how capable this machine is. So let's talk about basic tasks like web browsing, emails, maybe a little bit of Spotify here and there. You can have quite a few tabs open with no problems, at least that I've encountered. It's really great. It's really smooth, fluent. It can handle your day-to-day tasks, no problem. Again, that's kind of a given for something at this price point. I will reiterate that. It is great for basic usage. For instance, you can do 1080p video editing with this thing, or you can do some programming, web development, which typically isn't too demanding, but it works really well on this device. You can also do Xcode, but you would want to run all your simulations on your physical iPhone and not the simulator, because that will tax this machine. But you do have a lot of power and a lot of flexibility with a machine like this. And I think that's solely based to Apple's optimization. They just do a really good job of optimizing their hardware and software. Now, the display on the MacBook Air is absolutely phenomenal. It's actually one of the most important things to me when I'm buying a laptop is the screen, since you are literally looking at it every single time you use the device. It's probably a good thing to have a screen that looks nice to look at, and this one does. It's 2560 by 1660, I believe, is the Retina display. Scaled really nicely. You don't see any pixels or anything like that, and the colors are alive and vibrant. They really pop. I love it. It's great. It's absolutely ideal if you want to do video editing, Photoshop work, any kind of graphic design or web development. It's just A1 for A1. Is that, do people say that? A1, is that a thing? It's really good for that kind of stuff. The base model MacBook Air has two Thunderbolt 3 displays on the left side. Two Thunderbolt 3 ports. What the are they called? So the base model MacBook Air has two Thunderbolt 3 ports on the left side, and then just a headphone jack on the right side. We've kind of come to expect not a lot of ports from Apple, which is fine for me personally. Hasn't really been an issue. I usually connect devices via Bluetooth, and the only time I really need physical ports is for the display and the power, and hey, that's two, and there's two ports available to me. So they are giving me the bare minimum, but I feel like for most people, they can find a way to make it work. It would be nice if there were a couple more ports on the other side, but you could go the Pro route if you want to go that option. Aesthetically, the 2020 MacBook Air is really gorgeous, but how is it to actually use and interact with? Well, the trackpad is as amazing as it is on every other MacBook Pro. It's big, it's Force Touch, it just feels really smooth. Your fingers sort of glide across the surface, and it's really responsive. Again, no surprises there. That's sort of Apple's reputation with their trackpads. And the keyboard, they have now fixed. If you're watching this review, I'm sure you've seen others, and everyone's raving about the new scissor switches that they're using now as opposed to the old butterfly switches, which did have some reliability issues. Long story short, the hype is real. The keyboard feels absolutely incredible. In fact, it is my favorite keyboard that I've used on a laptop, period. And I'm really happy that Apple decided to go back to something that works, but I'm also pretty confused as to why it took them so long to do it, but whatever. Now I use this laptop for a wide variety of things, and it's really good. I have no complaints. It's sort of like the perfect daily driver if you're not doing anything super intense or super demanding. And if you are doing something super intense and super demanding, I do recommend going the MacBook Pro. You will just have a lot more headroom there, but you can make this MacBook Air work for you really well with slightly more demanding tasks like video editing, photo editing, and the like. But all in all, I think there's a really great value here. And I just want to talk quickly about the i5 quad core versus the i3 in the base model. I actually used the i5 briefly at my buddy's house, and I did notice it to get a little bit hotter, a little bit quicker than the i3, which makes sense, but it's important to remember that anytime a laptop gets hot, it does sort of have to throttle itself, which means you don't get to utilize the full capabilities of the processor. And I think at the end of the day, longevity-wise in particular, it might actually be smarter to get the base model with a slightly slower CPU. Having the laptop run at cooler temperatures overall without constant throttling will absolutely benefit the laptop's life overall. So it's just something to think about. I personally feel like I made the right decision with the base model because it does everything I need it to do, and it does it running fairly cool. Now in terms of battery life, this thing is amazing. I have zero complaints because I can get through a full day doing everything I need to do, like web browsing, streaming music, videos, some productivity work, and still finish with about 20%. So very happy overall. I also use it at about 70% brightness. Sometimes the keyboard's lit up, sometimes it's not. It doesn't seem to make too big of a difference. So very pleased in that regard. Now, if I could give Apple any feedback on this laptop, the one thing I would say is with the keyboard, even though it's my favorite keyboard I've ever used on a laptop, I still feel like there could be a little bit more room for some travel. Or I worded that weird. Let's just say I want more travel distance. When you actually depress the key, it still feels a little too shallow for my liking. I don't know how much more travel distance I'd really want, but just a little bit would be really nice, just so I feel like there's actually a depression. That would be my only real feedback with this laptop. And again, it's not really that big of a deal because even without that little bit of extra travel, this keyboard still feels incredible. Now I'm trying to remember, I covered the display, the keyboard, battery life, my usages and how it's sufficient for those usages. What am I missing? Oh, I guess I could probably talk about the repairs on MacBooks. They're really expensive, so if you buy one, buy AppleCare. I'm an Apple certified Macintosh technician, so I've seen some things. So if you're watching this video so far and you're wondering, should I buy a MacBook Air, and you're British, what you should absolutely consider before answering that question is what you're going to use it for. If the answer is word processing, Excel kind of stuff, you know, productivity, but nothing too hardcore, no 4K video editing or gaming, which you wouldn't buy a Mac for anyway, but if you're not using it for that intense stuff and you're just using it for day-to-day stuff, absolutely. And you can push this thing too. Oh, my phone keeps going off. I apologize. That must be why I don't have more subscribers. But if you're going to be using this laptop for day-to-day stuff, plus the occasional above and beyond task like video editing, 1080p footage with a lot of effects, or maybe you're doing some programming or running Xcode for long periods of time, it can handle that, and it's nice for that. That's going to kind of conclude this review. This is the first review I've done without a script, by the way, so it was a little bit all over the place. I'm going to have a nightmare editing it, but hopefully it did provide you guys with some insight. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below. I am there regularly because I do not have a life. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a dislike. Follow me on Twitter at CarsonNotFound. Follow me on Instagram at CarsonNotFound, and I think that's pretty much everything. Hopefully, I will see you guys in the next video. Sorry for this video. It's been a train wreck. Peace.